There aren't very many places where you can study bison interacting with aspen. We're studying in northern Yellowstone what's sometimes called the northern range, and we have 87 randomly selected aspen sites in that area that we've been surveying in 2012 and also in 1998. I went back to those sites in 2020 and 2021 to see how the aspen had been growing. And that's when I started noticing that they're getting tall enough that they're really not in much danger of being eaten by elk anymore. Many of these were being broken by bison. Until the 1960s, the park management controlled the populations of elk and bison in the park by culling to keep the populations down and try to control their impacts. And after this stopped in 1968, the elk population rapidly increased to where they were limited by starvation in the 80s and 90s. The bison population, though, just basically stayed between about 500 to 1,000 until about 2004, 2005. The bison population in this part of Yellowstone has increased by more than fourfold. There's not a consensus about why this happened. The elk really had kind of overpopulated in northern Yellowstone and were suppressing the aspen because they would eat all the new growth. And with the changes in the elk populations following wolf reintroduction, also grizzly bears and cougars increased at about the same time. We saw the browsing was starting to decrease, and as a result, some of these young aspen were starting to grow taller. The bison recovery in Yellowstone also is a huge conservation success story that started out with 25 bison at the end of the 1800s. And they've grown into this great herd of bison that has the purest genetics of almost any bison in North America. Bison, though, are considered to be the responsibility of the park by the state of Montana. The state of Montana doesn't want to allow the bison to be wild animals like all other wildlife, like elk and grizzly bears and wolves, and everything else can just wander the landscape. And they are currently negotiating a new management plan with the state of Montana, but there's no option being considered to reduce the number of bison. Rather, they're talking about either keeping them the way they are or maybe even letting them just increase further to where they're limited by starvation. The behaviors of bison really are to maintain and expand and affect the diversity of grasslands. These two conservation goals have begun to interact, and the bison have begun to impact this other conservation goal of restoring these plants. I think that it's just important to understand more fully what the situation is in terms of how the bison interact with the ecology.